Okay. Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. I um I in a lot of ways the show is on fire. There's a lot of moving parts, and it's moving in a very good pace. And I give credit to GH for doing it. I watch all five of the soaps. I can sit there and tell you right now that GH is definitely number one right now. Okay. I mean, I know I'm doing like what they call the compliment sandwich, but I just want to start off by saying that GH is definitely killing it. There's a couple of holes in this writing though, right? So we had a temporary Maxie today. That was a bit jarring. This woman looked like she's like about 47, 48. I know Maxie is probably in her late 30s, give or take. But I was like, wow, you look like you aged like 10, 15 years. But okay, let's just move on. The conversation with Michael didn't really go anywhere, so I'm not gonna really. She planned a christening, so that's it. But her conversation with Brooklyn, she finds out about the dirty money, and she's like, listen, I get it, Spinelli and they like Sonny and Jason, but I need deception. I got 3 kids. We're gonna do what we gotta do. If it means getting ahead and trying to save the company. So you talk about that. And after talking about that, she finds the file that Brooklyn is just leaving out in the open still. It turns out, Brooklyn's like, listen, I wasn't going to do this is where the writing just it's not making sense to me, right? She said that her plan was to leave it out in the open so that the kids, Rocco and Danny, can accidentally find it, and you know, since Lulu is all about truth and justice, how come he didn't sit there and tell Rocco about his conception? Come in and do that. I mean, Rocco has the right to know, right? Just like Dante had the right to know. Actually, she's like, you can't do that because that's going to hurt Rocco. And she's like, I know that. And she's like, you know what? Listen, I'm better than her. I'm not going to do what she did to me. But the problem is that you did do that. You literally did. She just said that she didn't do that. She was like, well, I was going to do that, but I didn't do that. I want you to think about this for a minute. She was I remember that episode specifically. I could be wrong, but I'm like 99% sure. The kids come in, ask in Brooklyn, what are you doing? At the Brooklyn, I was like, oh, how was the pool? How was work or whatever, right? They talk for a little bit. Jason comes in there. I don't exactly remember how it happened. Yeah, Jason came in there, and the kids left, right? They went to go do something else. Brooklyn left that file there. And remember, Danny and Rocco was going to sit there and play poker. And then Danny accidentally found that file because, they want to sit there and clear the table. So, either the writing is screwed up or you just lied to Maxie. And the only reason I'm just saying the writing is screwed up is because, I feel like if she would have did it, she would have been like, yeah, I did it. Or she would have been like, yeah, I know, whatever. Maybe she didn't know that the kids found it and just decided not to say anything. But you literally did what you set out to do. That was the whole goal. So you did it. So why are you lying to Maxie for it? Why are you sitting there swearing up and down like she really believes that she didn't get revenge on Lulu by doing that? So I don't know if the writing is screwed up or is just Brooklyn just lying to Maxie, her quote unquote best friend. Now let's talk about Jason and Dante for a hot minute. Right? One of the things I found interesting in the conversation is when they talk about, Selena Woo. They bring up Selena Woo to be like, listen, the suspects in the Charlie's fire, whatever. Because I think he asked like a question like, am I gonna have to sit there and try to find them, or do you already know where the bodies are? Right? And they both kind of seem like, it's just kind of odd, like, Selena just doing it. Jason's like, yeah, I don't feel that Selena would do that, knowing who Jason is, knowing their reputation and their rapport and everything like that. But I know who would sit there and set that up to make it look like Selena. And he says, sit with her, right? So, what was the point of getting her out the way? Why was it so important to get her out the way? See, that's my whole thing. Like, Selena was like, listen, I can just talk to Sonny and Jason, and I can smooth this out. But Sitwell was like, no, no, no. He's like a mad dog right now. He won't listen to logic or reason. So you gotta leave town. And Selena's like, you know what? I don't know you from a hole in the wall, but you make an excellent point. So I guess I better sit there and I got a plane to catch. Again, this goes back more to the actress availability as opposed to something that just doesn't make sense. And this is what I'm talking about. The writing is a little shaky ground, as I was sit there. So, after Willow was sat there talking to Kai and Trina about what kind of a fine job that Kai has been doing, stepping up and getting him out the press conference when, well, pretty much when tits up. But let's be honest. We all know why Willow was there. Okay? Because Michael was, he has appointments at the intake Wiley for swimming classes and stuff like that. And, she's not there waiting, and Michael sees this. Michael's like, he walks up to Willow and he's like, listen, he didn't see you yet. Let's not make this more difficult than it needs to be. You need to leave. Right? She didn't listen at all, right? So he starts swimming and stuff like that, and he gets off the pool. He sees Willow, and he runs over. Now Michael is like, I swear, he must have had so many different curse words in his head when he saw her. They hug, and it's like they miss each other and stuff. And at this point, Michael has to sit there and choose just a lot different, right? And I felt like Willow was sitting there counting on Michael's kind-heartedness. Michael had to be very firm, like, all right, listen, it's time to get him. And took him and left, and she, left and started crying and everything like that. But this is one of those things where it's like, and she does sit there and say, listen, it's only going to be a matter of time, before I get to sit there and see him. Like, okay, well, then we'll wait until that time comes. Because, again, the thing is that it's heartbreaking in a sense to sit there and watch her, cry and stuff like that because she misses her son. You know? And that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is that you sat there and you caused that child unnecessary pain, right? Yeah, listen, it is what it is. Oh, joy. It is what it is. It sucks, and, you got to deal with that. But now, what I'm saying? Like, you're making Wiley some, they're saying things like, he hates to judge and everything like that. First of all, hate should never sit there and come out of a child's mouth. Let's just be real for a minute. You know, you put Michael in an uncomfortable position by doing what you did instead of respecting the court order. So, you know, it sucks all around. And the thing is, it's not like he doesn't want her to have a relationship with her son. But Drew is a bad influence, and you keep sitting there, you know, you're on the Drew spell, whatever people want to sit there and say. And so, like, you don't have a problem with you, you have a problem with Drew. Me and with you. And, you know, they're causing this pain on yourself. That's what sucks. But, you know, it's still heartbreaking to watch. Um, so Diane can't see Sonny for some odd reason, and Turner decides to start questioning Sonny about Natalia and the death and the pills and everything like that. And I think Sonny says something along the lines of like, you feel guilty about her death. And they talk about it for a little bit. Sonny said something that was really interesting. Sonny said, I could have swore I might have said this a couple of days ago. You don't know what somebody is going through that led them up to that point. Like, they had demons way before she got to Port Charles. In the life that she lived, the choices that she made, that led her to that point. So he was like, listen, this isn't on me. This isn't on her. This isn't on you. This is on Natalia herself. And I guess Turner, in some sort of way, feel kind of guilty for, listen, if it wasn't foul play, then she pretty much unalived herself. But she also sits there and says, like, listen, without your attorney, anything that you say, it can't be admissible in court. So he's like, okay, I mean, that's cool and everything like that, but it doesn't really do me any favors, so, like, what's really the point of this? And that sucks, because who knows what's going on. Maybe they couldn't get a hold of the actress or whatever, but you got that going. And so she leaves and says that we're done or whatever. I don't know if Sonny's going to leave, but he does sit there and get a visit from Laura. Now, long story short, Lulu is like, you need to sit there and distance yourself from Sonny. And, she talks about tearing up the family and, I feel like what she was really doing was just making a bunch of excuses. Because at the end of the day, Lulu was like, and she had a good point. She's like, you love the city, you're going to take care of the city. You can't take care of the city if your association with Sonny is making you look bad in the press, look bad in the polls, and Asmer or Boyles or something, they're catching up. Somebody as much of a scumbag as Boyles shouldn't even be coming close to you. But that's because of your ties with Sonny. So it's like you have to sit there and ask. You got to sit there and be like, which one is more important? Now, she gives her reasons why, and you can sit there and debate if they're right or wrong. But at the end of the day, it feels to me like the more excuses. The more excuses. And like she said, the people aren't going to see it that way. You may see it that way. The people are not going to see it that way. She talks about how she's going to, she doesn't want to compromise her principles and this, that, and third. And I'm just like, girl, you're making that office look weak. That is the bottom line. So you need to decide on what you're going to do. And what she does is she goes to the police station to talk to Sonny. Talks about the fires at Charlie's and being like, listen, I need to protect the city and I need to know what you know. So clearly you made your choice. And, if the reins get handed over to Boyles, with Sitwell, working with them, then you practically gave the city to Sitwell. So I know that she's kind of in a tough position, but I'm like, girl, you're going to have to sit there and make some hard choices. So start making them and stop making excuses. Now Rocco is, kind of spinning with this information. Finding out that Britt is his mom, but not his mom. Lulu is his mom, but like, Like he has two moms or whatever. And Emma comes over, and Emma sits there and tells her version of the bridge or whatever, and just pretty much sit there and say that she was kind of a shitty person, and she was pathetic, and she had to sit there and cling on to her dad, and she got knocked up to sit there and do it. I remember a little bit of that, but she was like, long story short, you gotta sit there and ask your parents. It would be, it's kind of a shame that we don't have Patrick on the show, because you can also sit there and ask his take on Brett and everything, but he's too busy sitting there playing Billy Boy Abbott on the Young and the Restless, which the story is actually pretty good right now. Just saying. Um, Rocco does come home, and he pretty much confronts Lulu with the whole Brit situation and her kind of birthing him and naming him a much better name than Rocco, because that's what you would sit there and name a dog, just like Scout, which is another stupid name. Again, that's what you would name a dog. Let's see. Now Tracy left Brooklyn to sit there and talk to Maxie and work out deception stuff and hopefully save the company. Well, she tries to save Gio. So she goes to Gio and she's like, listen, let's sit there and talk. Bottom line, she tells him about the fire and about Christina. She tells him about Morgan. And she pretty much is like about Michael and the fire. And it's like, listen, anyone that's close to Sonny will sit there and want to get. And Gio, listen, I get that he's on this emotional spin and turmoil and everything like that, but it kind of annoyed me a little bit because he seemed like he had this whole like, oh, I know what's best or whatever. You're just trying to turn me against my uncle. I'm like, you do realize that Michael was in the fire, right? Because he chose to be close to Sonny. Morgan was in the car bomb. Christina barely made it out alive. Like, she is giving you Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C, or whatever. Like, you know, the threat is real. Now, I don't understand how she sits there and says that she can protect Gio. Um, Emma comes in, she chimes in, she decides not to leave. I'm like, Emma, listen, I get that you're trying to stand up for Gio and be there for Gio and kind of cool down the situation because when she walked in, it was a little kind of tense. I'm like, you are going to push Tracy's patience. Like, yeah, you helped her out with that whole grave digging thing, but like, you're treading a fine line, girl. Now, Emma practically is like, listen, he's safe over there. He's safe with um Anna. She's a police commissioner or whatever. I mean, my whole thing is like, I don't see any security at the Quartermains. And you stop to think about this. They kidnapped Sasha at the Quartermains, right? So, like, what makes you think that your place is Fort Knox? But I get what she's trying to say, and her heart is in the right direction. And Gio's like, no, I'm just going to sit there and just do what I do. And so, you know, Tracy's like, okay, why don't you do yourself a favor? I think she said that Morgan was 23. So go visit that gravesite, and then go to Charlie's, and then you can sit there and just decide on yourself on what you want to do, because you seem to think that you have all the goddamn answers. And the thing is, normally I'm not a huge fan of Tracy, but you know Sonny has caused Tracy's family a lot of pain, and we're not going to sit there and try to ignore that and act like that's not a thing. Just like Jocelyn, people were annoyed about what Jocelyn was sitting there saying, and although I'm not the biggest Jocelyn fan, she was not sitting there saying one goddamn thing wrong. She really wasn't. Let's see. And then there's the Trina saga with Kai. Trina's sitting there saying you need to stay away from the Quartermains because, they're going to drive you crazy. Um, Talking about the tension with her parents and everything. And the one thing that was really alarming, or that was really pretty much kind of sad, is that she was not there talking about, because Kai's not there talking about how much he cares about her, and, they're talking about the relationship. And there's a point where she's like, it took me a long time to sit there and really kind of get over Spencer and to really let somebody in new. And, the risk and what happens when we let in somebody and what they can sit there and do. Now, we know that Kai, well, pretty much kind of screwed Trina over with her parents by telling Drew what Curtis is going to do, right? Even though even though Kai was like, I'm not going to say anything to Drew. I'm going to sit there and keep your secret. And he lied right to this woman's face, right? And so essentially, you're sitting with a goddamn liar, okay? And they're doing this whole lovey-dovey sweet thing and everything like that. And you're just kind of like, well, goddamn, listen, Spencer was Spencer. Spencer was her first boyfriend. And although I didn't necessarily like the Spencer character, Spencer was a good boyfriend of her. Now, this new guy, nah, he ain't it. And I don't know, here's the thing. Once he gets found out to be a lying barsuda, will they keep him on the show? Does he have enough staying power to sit there and stay on the show? It depends if the show listens to the fans, and we know that it doesn't really happen too often. I said the same thing in my Days review that I put out. Is Sophia gonna stay on the show? Given the actress being a recast, being shitty recast, I don't know. Now I feel like that's pretty much about it. GH, and also I feel like why do I feel like I miss so much? It's like, seriously, it's like 22 something minutes, and I feel like I still miss so much. The longest review I think I've ever done was a 29-minute review. And I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what the hell I was they're talking about for 29 minutes. I feel like that's about it. Now, clearly, I might have missed something because, GH just loved to shove characters, at us. Anything I missed, write in the comment section below. Come to the live stream. I got a special guest tonight, so we're going to be sitting there clearly talking about General Hospital, as well as the other shows. I'm not going to say who that is, but it should be fun. Now, Friday, I'm not going to do a live stream. It's my dad's birthday. But Saturday, for members, I definitely will be. I have some very fun stuff for us to sit there and, take a look at. So if you're not a member, make sure you join to become a member. With that being said, I'm going to go. I'll see you in the next video.